is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice.
Fellow Biafrans, this is Rose Ama, and this is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Today in this program, we bring you a special program, a lesson in history, specifically the story of the 7 Hausa kingdoms, or the Hausa kingdoms in general, and what happened to them when the Fulanese entered their territory. It is an important lesson in invasion. This is a story of how the 7 Hausa kingdoms, or Hausa Bokwe, once powerful, succumbed to the Fulanese, who, like an invasive virus, took over the Hausa kingdoms and turned the Hausas into Fulani slaves. Today, the Fulanese refer to the Hausas as their slaves. Now, the Fulanese are engaged in an expansionist quest again to dominate other groups. And Biafrans represent the Fulani greatest obstacle so far in that quest that they claim to occupy the territory from the north to the Atlantic. We invite the Hausas to contemplate their positions and their relationship with the Fulani and ask themselves, is this the legacy they want to leave for their children into the future? Perhaps it is time that they join Biafrans to chase these marauding invaders off our lands. The Fulanese have never been indigenous to Nigeria, and they have continued to invade our regions from northern Nigeria through the Middle Belt into the south and Biafra lands in an attempt to carve out new homeland for themselves. Where would we go? They want to chase us to the sea and drown us, or at least, if they can't drown us, kill us in our sleep. Ask yourselves, where would we go? Would you stand by and watch them raze our homes, rape our women, destroy us? What is the cost of your homeland, your fatherland, your motherland, the land in which your ancestors' bones are housed? What would you do? Would you stand by and watch somebody dig up your ancestors' bones? Is that the story you will tell future generations of your people? We welcome you to listen to this special program. It was sent to us by a scholar who wants to remain anonymous. We encourage you to listen with open minds and open hearts, and then contemplate the implications of what you have heard for yourselves, for your family, and for the next generation. Thank you for joining us today. This is Rose Ama, and this is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Peace.
A historical perspective of the quest for the liberation of the Hausa from Fulani bondage. Before the advent of the Fulani to present-day northern Nigeria, there were the indigenous Hausa people in existence. They had their kings ruling over their kingdoms with their culture and tradition. They were pagans practicing the traditional religion, viz. Worship of objects and animals. However, they had contact in early 15th century with Islamic missionaries from Mali through interactions and trade. Islam was already the religion of Hausa people before the Ijtihad of Usman Dan Fodio. The Hausa territory lay above the confluence of the Niger and Benue rivers of northern Nigeria, between the Songhai Empire in the west and that of Kanem Borno Empire in the east. As stated above, the Hausas had kings who ruled over their kingdoms of 7 Hausa states, known as Hausa Bakwai. The 7 true states are Biram, Daura, Gobert, Kano, Katsina, Rano, Zazao, which is Zaria. They also had 7 outlying satellite cities, also known as Banza Bakwai, and they include Zamfara, Kebbi, Yauri, Gwari, Nupe, and Ilorin, which is in Yorubaland. Daura is regarded as the spiritual home of the Hausa people. The Fulani. Although some historians postulated an origin of the Fulani in ancient Egypt or the Upper Nile Valley, however, written records suggest that the Fulani spread from West Africa, currently Senegal, Guinea, Mauritania, around 1,000 years ago, reaching the Lake Chad Basin 500 years ago. So one can say that they are partially African and partially Negroid. They are a product of crossbreeding between the Turaj, Berbers, and Arabs of North Africa on one hand, and the local Black African women of Futajelon of Guinea. In those days, Futajelon was a popular trade route between North and West Africa. After hundreds of years of this union was the Fula race. This is evident in the texture of their hair, their thin lips, their slim and pointed nose, their tall and slight build, and their more often than not light complexion. There are generally 3 different types of Fulani based on settlement patterns. These are the nomadic, pastoral, or Mbororo, the semi-nomadic, and the settled, or town Fulani. The pastoral Fulani move around with their cattle throughout the year. Guinea-Conakry is the only country in which the Fulani constitute the largest ethnic group, but are not the majority, about 38% of the population. They speak the Fulfodi language, also known as Fula or Fulani. Fulfude is a member of the Senegambian branch of the Niger-Congo language family, spoken by about 6.5 million people in many parts of West Africa. The Fulani states in Nigeria include different territories in the north, such as Sokoto, Gombe, Katsina, Kebbi, Bauchi, Yobe, etc. The Jihad. Usman Danfodio was a Fulani scholar and cleric who launched a religious war, jihad, in northern Nigeria in the year 1804, which lasted for 6 years. The goal of which was to purify Islam and encourage less devout Muslims to return to Orthodox Islam. He was born in 15th December 1754 into the family of Malam Muhammadu Fodio and Hawa bint Muhammad in Mararat, Gobert, present-day Sokoto State, to the Toronkowa tribe. Shortly after his birth, his parents and the rest of the family relocated to Digel, where he grew up. His descent had been traced to one Mura Jakolo, who had migrated to Gobert from Futatoro around the 15th century. Futatoro was an Islamic state which came into existence after a successful jihad in the Senegambian Guinea areas. Other Islamic states include Futajelon and Futabundu. His Toronkowa tribe claimed descent from Prophet Muhammad. He was an erudite scholar who had undertaken a deep study of Islamic law, theology, and mysticism. However, he received his first tutelage under his father, his uncles, and later at Agades, north of Mararat, at the feet of Jabril. As a cleric and scholar in Gobert, the kings of Gobert employed him in their courts to teach, as they were nominal Muslims. He then used the influence he had gained to develop a Muslim community of his own, some miles away from the capital, governed according to the strict principles of Sharia law preached by the Qadiyya. The kings of Gobert gradually came to the conclusion that they could not continue to tolerate this independent jurisdiction and began to take steps against the Muslim community. And by 1804, the situation became such that Usman felt he had no alternative but to declare a jihad and to adopt the role of an independent Muslim ruler, Amir el-Muminin, defender of the faithful, or in Hausa, the Sakin Muslimi. To achieve this, he mobilized the discontented Fulani and oppressed Hausa peasants throughout Hausa land, and they welcomed it as it was an opportunity for them to rid themselves of vexatious overlords and arbitrary taxation of the kings of Gobert. Within the first 3 years, all indigenous Hausa kings were replaced with Fulani emirs. Having settled and consolidated, he started pushing down south with the invasion of Yoruba land in the early 1800s. In the late 1800s, he formed a treaty with the British Empire and were colonized by the British in 1901. It is worthy to note that the Fulani jihadists were defeated by the Tiv tribe at the Battle of Abastin in 1806. The Fulani invaders were led by Bello, son of Osman Dan Fodio. The battle lasted for 3 days. The Tivs were known for their poisoned arrows and bravery in battle. This accounts for the frequent killings up till today by the Fulani herdsmen in the present-day Benue State. They can be described as deeply courageous and notoriously ruthless and ferocious in battle, yet they have a strange and inexplicable attachment to, an affinity and affection for their cattle and cows. They betray little emotion, even in the most difficult times, and even when going through immense and the most grueling forms of hardship, and they are focused, mentally strong, disciplined, patient, calculating, proud, ruthless, wise, and totally unforgiving. They have long memories, never forgetting a friend of a favor, and never forgiving an insult or slight. Most important of all is the fact that they overwhelm and conquer very slowly and incrementally, and they do so primarily by infiltrating, assimilation, and guile. It is only when they are fully entrenched and empowered, and when they have totally won the confidence of their host community and infiltrated them, that the sword is brought out and the most extreme forms of barbarity and violence are employed to achieve their objectives. That is how they conquered the Habe kingdom, subjugated the Hausa, and turned them into vassals. That is how they took Ilorin from the Yoruba, Are Ona Kakanfo, Afonja. In both cases, they dethroned and murdered the sitting kings that they had earlier befriended. Some historians have argued that they value the life of their cows more than that of human beings. This may be true of the uneducated herdsmen and pastoralists amongst them, but may not be true of traditional rulers and educated political elite. Some have also argued that their greatest desire is to establish a homeland for themselves by grabbing the land of others, because there is nowhere in Africa that they can call their own. Even in Guinea-Conakry, where they originally came from and constitute about 38% of the population, they have never been trusted with political power, and they are viewed with the utmost suspicion. Since the jihad, they have been imposing their Fulani emirs over the local indigenous population all over the north in the name of Islam and turning the children of the conquered Hausas into Almajiris. They constitute only 7% to 10% of the 200 million strong Nigerian population, yet they wield and control more power and authority than any other tribe or ethnic nationality in Nigeria. This has been the case since Nigerian independence in 1960, by either holding power directly or wielding it through a series of spineless, cowardly, pliant, willing, and loyal surrogates who do their bidding out of ignorance, fear, and pitiful inferiority complex, and who consider them to be the master race that we are ordained by God to lead Nigeria, and that they were born to rule. Through Islam, they have conquered most of the core north because the emir is not just an ethnic overlord, but he is also the leader of the Islamic faithful in his domain. This is powerful and dangerous mix of religion and ethnicity, and it is one that the Fulani has used very effectively in the quest to dominate, conquer, and subjugate the whole of Nigeria and impose their will on the local indigenous tribes and populations that have been there for thousands of years before they arrived. It is worthy to note that the other Usman Danfodio, it is worthy to note that other than Usman Danfodio, two other Fulani leaders stand out as the custodians and flag bearers of their Messianic mission. The first of the two is Sir Ahmadu Bello, the erstwhile Sadwana of Sokoto, and the Premier of Northern Region. And the second is General Muhammadu Buhari, the just gone President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is for this reason Usman Danfodio is often referred to as the first Mahdi of the North, while Ahmadu Bello and Muhammadu Buhari are referred to as the second and third Mahdis of the North, respectively. This is the reason why a lot of Fulanis moved into the country, albeit illegally, and we are all enrolled into the identity database of the country Nigeria, and we are given identity numbers as Nigerians by Professor Issa Pantami, a well-known jihadist who is the minister, or who was the Minister of Digital Economy and Communications. This is also responsible for the stoppage of teaching of history in Nigerian secondary schools, so that other tribes wouldn't know that they are not indigenous, that the Fulani are not indigenous to Nigerian, but are migrants. This made a former president of Nigeria, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, to raise the alarm of a process of Fulanization of the country. You can say what you want about the Fulani, but one thing you cannot take from them is the fact that they fully understand and appreciate the awesome power and beauty of ethnic and tribal unity in a wider multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multicultural country like Nigeria. Despite all pretensions to the contrary, the Fulani will always put the Fulani interest before the Nigerian interest. And this has served their tribal purpose and vision very well. This is a lesson that other Nigerian tribes and ethnic nationalities would do well to learn. Therefore, it is highly commendable that the indigenous people of Hausa have started a movement for self-actualization. Turatai Kai Bango. Turatai Kai Bango. This should be encouraged, propagated, and supported. We should all join hands to checkmate these marauding invaders and land grabbers, as it was done in Central African Republic. Say no to Fulanization and say yes to the rights of indigenous peoples within Nigeria. The indigenous peoples of Biafra stand for self-determination, stand for freedom, stand for liberty, equality, and fairness.
Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Hail to